What's up, guys? Vince Reddy here. Listen, I'm not. I kind of almost forgot to talk about Impel Down last weekend, and when it comes down to these reviews, but I just want to let people know that when it comes down to doing reviews in general, I'm not good. I'm not good. That's why you don't see any webtoon reviews of me reviewing because I'm supposed to review series. I think that I said that somewhere in the beginning of this channel where I'm like, man, I'm gonna read them and I'm gonna review them. But I don't the review part ain't happening because I'm not good, okay? It is what it is, okay? I am not the best when it comes down to reviewing anything in general, but I tried to make an effort of at least putting at, two or three reviews of, every weekend or every you know, every month, it feels like. But yeah, here I am talking about Impel Down, and I'm gonna give you my short thoughts about it. I mean, quote unquote short. Let me tell you, I ramble a lot, so I'm not gonna be the best when it comes down to talking about each point of the story. I'm not the best. Okay, listen, you find any other channel when it comes down to reviewing, One Piece or anything else. I'm not. I'm not. I just can't compete. I just can't. I'm not the best. I am literally like just scrambling or scrapping, holding on to a straw when it comes down to reviewing this straw hat. Get it? But yeah, straw of any sorts. When it comes to reviewing these series, but I'm gonna try my best, okay? Because it's really not that hard. I'm gonna talk about Impel Down, the part of when from Lily Island, Amazon Lily. God, I forgot Amazon Lily Island. That island, that Luffy came back from, the female dominated island, and the start of that when it was announced that his Luffy's brother, or quote unquote brother, happens to actually get caught by the prisoners or Blackbeard and sent to this high level prison. And this review is going to be focused heavily on the prison, Impel Down, basically, and what it is and how I think about the symbols and what it really represents. Because Impel Down is no different to hell. It's literally hell. It's hell on the seas of the Calm Belt, and it literally and emphasize that in a way where it's just like, yeah, this is definitely a torture area, and you thanks all to Luffy, and it's all the way up to me. Because here's the thing, there's so many episodes, there's so many like different arcs. I don't know if the arc of Luffy all the way up to the Navy base sets around Impel Down, if that counts. So it's just gonna be centered around, it's all the way up to the beginning of Impel Down, all the way up to when they left Impel Down. Because of course that's what happens in knowing that what ways to save the brother. And keep in mind there's gonna be some spoilers here and there, maybe some spoilers. I'm gonna try not to spoil, but when you see these different arc reviews, it should be noted that there has to be spoilers. There has to be things talking about it. I already spoiled already, so I don't know why I'm giving the the heads up. But yeah, Impel Down is an interesting viewed place. A lot of times nowadays in our social, in our medias, that hell is sort of like this. All because I kind of blame Hell of a Boss or Hasbin Hotel about this. Hell is now a pretty place. No, it isn't. It just isn't. And I get the symbolism of like normally hell is just like a terrible place to be in general in any media. It doesn't take a genius to know that hell is not a sexy place. I'm just being honest. And pretty much this kind of really centers around that. Knowing that Impel Down is a revocation of hell. Literally, almost like, the different levels is sort of representative of the rings of hell. And also how it's, the place where you go when you're in prison and stuff like that. And let me tell you, I kind of remember seeing this. If there's one thing I can't get the thought of my, out of me, if we're just going to get into this already, is that, when it comes down to the clown, Buggy, and also Mr. Tree, in those garments, they have to be sweating like crazy. Those garments must be. Here's the thing. Nowadays, I keep looking at different shows and stuff like that, like logically, like looking at what they're wearing and stuff like what Luffy, especially that battle he had at Water 7 in the final arcs of Water 7, all the way up to the gate. I'm just thinking like, man, Luffy's like, what are those slippers or whatever? they have to be broken at this point, and they were, knowing that they were. I guess non-existent because when they left the feed during the end of the battle. Now I'm thinking the same thing about those prison garments because I'm just like those has to be sweaty. And when going into Impel Down, I really want to, because we left off of what happened to the other crew. And I like how they really put that, in the beginning, I guess, of this, Impel Down in a ways. We start to know a little bit like what happened to Zoro, what happened to Sanji, what happened to, and I really do want to have a way to talk about the different places that they went to and actually analyze it as a side assignment of me, discussing it because I do want to talk a little bit of like, especially where Ivanka's from, Sanji's place, which kind of almost, really sets like, my kind of fantasy in a ways, but also just like different areas of what it is when it comes down to these different landscapes and everything, especially like another version of Skypiea or whatever, where Nami is in, and also that whole other prison area that Robin is in as well, and also what is happening to poor to to poor Chopper, like in this island, so innocent, knowing that he's like getting like I wish it was somewhere like a bit adorable and somewhere innocent, but nah. He's being challenged in this one place where he's been hunted down by both birds and also like big men that are hungry. It makes sense. They're in a stranded island. They got to eat something. And pretty much they just found this reindeer in the middle of nowhere. And I just feel sad. And also for like, Usopp's, especially knowing who that person on the night is and what this island, like there's different islands out there. The world of One Piece is always stretching with imagination. A lot of times when I look at, like the analyzation of what these islands are, I just want to know that there is more than just the red line, the new world, and also the triangle, which is basically where our friends are. But our friends set off when they actually got disappeared from Bartholomew. But it's just like, man, there's just so much more, especially knowing the worlds of where these areas are. I just want to know more about it, and especially Zoro's and Ripino's. I don't know the girl. I just get this feeling between Zoro and that girl, like knowing that they can actually come up with a relationship. But I'm hoping, like I know it's probably not gonna happen in this series, and Zoro is not the type of person to actually be in love, especially with this particular individual. But I'm just like curious, like will that relationship develop? Like I ship them for sure. But of course, back to Impel Down. This world landscape of just the world building of Impel Down is insane. An underwater prison. It doesn't get crazier than that, knowing that for a place like this, it seems like, like this is definitely a perfect setting for, battles and also different dark themes to be set off. And also, I just really dig Luffy, and also like, especially not having anyone knowing that with the Snake Princess, oh man, Boa Hancock. Like I don't know if I see them as a relationship in some cases, but I do see them like a potential in a ways where I'm like, okay, well, it might work or not. Boa Hancock definitely have the hots for Luffy, but Luffy is literally not that type of person to be fall in love at all in any sense. But man, that would actually be somewhat of a cool line of like if that can work. But at the same time, what about the other warlords? Especially how we're introduced to, back to the other warlords that I didn't see because I didn't really finish up, or at least I forgot about the other arcs, before Water 7. But seeing the Flamingo guy and also seeing Bartholomew in there. Also, Moria is back. I just don't like seeing him, to be honest. But, he's back. But the other ones are back. Having a feast, and also we see some other characters that I'm not familiar with. And Boa Hancock is pretty much part of that group, the 7, warlords or whatever. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to see where that leads to when we actually get out of Impel Down. But for now, Luffy has to save his brother in Impel Down, and also being introduced to a bunch of other dark. And I like the darkness of what this arc really puts. It really puts a sense of like what happens in Impel Down, what is the levels, how darker it gets, and what are these enemies and who they are. Like especially seeing Crocodile Mr. Crocodile down there, and also seeing this guy with the sword and that he's like known for killing anyone for the sake of fun or whatever, like something like that. And Magellan's power is something else. I kind of like Magellan and also his little friend there, as you can see with the Egyptian hat, if you know what I mean. Like these two are just like a hilarious bunch. But I really like how, especially for Magellan, tends to win for me, especially that quip that he did with the his like little seat there being a toilet. Like I never thought of these characters being serious, but they are. And Magellan's power is pretty much a good sentiment of that, knowing that he's to me most powerful because of that power, especially in the towards the ending, where we saw the purple turn to red. It was like a whole mess of like destruction and just like fear that destruction. But at the same time, like I don't know, when it comes down to my favorite enemy so far, I kind of like Magellan in a ways because of that. But anyways, like of course we're introduced to the dominatrix as well, and I feel like, and also these animals that she tames, and also like different parts of this prison, like it just like it's sort of like brings like different ideas of what challenges of different prisoners can go through, but if they can survive. Knowing that Luffy survived this paints a whole picture of like how powerful he is in a whole different sense, and also how much Ace really means to Luffy, knowing that he wants to save him. Like there's this sense of like his care for anyone, like especially the same thing with Robin and Water 7. The same care goes with Ace rescuing him when it comes down to this, underwater prison filled with different obstacles that are so painless, and also like especially that second one. I don't know if it was the second one. It's either the first or the second one, numbers. But that one where it has to with the sharp leaves with the red all plattered around it, and it's just like this level of like, oh man, like, it's just uncomfortability, especially the sands of the dead people in the desert level as well. I mean, gosh, that this place is truly hell. I can imagine the uncomfortability of some of these, and and especially the different the beasts, and also the opposite, pretty much of the hot level. Now you go into the colder areas, it's like people would like, I seen Buggy and also Mr. Tree going there, and they're like, man, I'd rather go to the other the warmer side of this whole prison. But man, it seems like there's also different levels that is hidden, like the way they put it, and they display the map, especially all thanks to Ivanka in ways where there's like levels of these different, like whoever's isolated, and also the ones that really paints, like I can only imagine like how it's set up to how they really set themselves mentally, or at least the prisoners being in there, of what they go through, because it does share a little bit of that. And we also see like for the enemies really trying to make us like them in some sense, especially Bon Clay and also Buggy and Mr. Tree. It kind of almost like works in a sense, even though we still know them as enemies from before. But of course that makes sense in a prison. But you see Luffy working with them, and how they see this, like especially Buggy being left and right with his pride. Like it seems like so filling to have that in a ways for like these different characters of what they're who they are, builds up to what they can do, to help each other. And especially for like what Luffy has been through, as again painting him as like a hero that is untouchable, of like going through that poison that Magellan used. Like it was just like the most shocking, and kind of like a sense of all thanks to the miracle worker Ivanko. And also like I like how like they really put this representation in a show that is pretty much like years ago, like painting this within, and also showcasing the drag community. Like it just reminds me of like especially me being part of the LGBT community, like the drag community in New York, and how like New York is, especially when I think about it, drag community in New York, when I, if especially watching Pose, like it's painted as a dark place, a dark area, and then you have the drag queen that really paints a light. And that's what I kind of see a reference of this arc in One Piece, where it's just like painted that way. But I like how this sort of like the representation as well that it brings for the show, and especially for an earlier time. Like it's just surprising how they put that there, and who being who you are, and how, and also Ivanko's powers of what it can do to actually, especially seeing the other characters and whoever works with Ivanko as well, how dedicated they are to Ivanko. I think that's how you say his name. But the drag king himself, or drag queen, like it's just like it really sets my favoritism of just like for this particular arc. I really do enjoy the arc, and how, especially how they got out, the very close steps and everything. Now we are introduced to Jinbei again, and Crocodile, and also especially coming back to trying to escape the prison, how everyone just like packs up to a million prisoners at a time, how they're all like getting out. It's like Luffy just changed the world, especially through Impel Down, having million prisoners, and now having only one. No spoilers, but one, which pretty much really helped them a lot. And that ending really strikes a very um like emotional pose to me when it comes down to them escaping the gate. Like that was real. Definitely check out the ending if you want to see what I mean when it comes down to the ending of the actual episode. I mean, because it's the one that I kind of like find myself like seeing, like how many of these people that are, even though they're enemies back when back in the past, if because I could barely remember, because these are episodes that I have not seen yet in current time, so I can't give you a honest review, because the arcs are just too damn long, so it would take forever to actually catch up to those. But now you see them as like how it's a paint in a different picture true now of how they are looked at, and how they are remembered. And for the last character of what Bond did, like it was definitely emotional moment, and the moment of like but very short, and also like onto the point as well. I really kind of like enjoy that, like many of them carrying the dedication with Luffy, and also with how this episode really carries out the interesting enemies, the monsters, and everything about it. It's like this whole obstacle. It's like the testament, the testament of what you can go through to, for like for Luffy, in a sense, for what he can do, and also like especially that how we're gonna see more, especially if we go back to Blackbeard, and also the rest of the other enemies. And who knows, Magellan might come back to actually try to catch him, or knowing the other character. I forget his name. I call him the Egyptian guy, the guy that man, I don't know. I try to remember his name. Look, names are names, and pretty much Magellan is the easy one to remember, but basically the other one that is supposed to take Magellan's place, man, you can just see like he's trying so hard. Because when it comes down to a prison that they set up for Magellan, it makes sense why he's like this, why he's powerful, and why he needs to be, in order to actually keep people out there safe. It's a prison. You gotta actually have people, bad people, to put in to save others. But are they prisoners? Yeah, they kind of, in a sense, are still prisoners in a way. But the thing is that was it a good idea to set them free? Because what Magellan did and what he tries to do, the reason why he's trying his best to like show no mercy or anything, and pulling all the stops, like pretty much is a reason like why and it makes sense, of course, because when you're in a prison, you're trying to get everyone out. That usually wasn't the plan. It was the plan was to rescue Ace, but Ace wasn't there, and then you ruin the whole prison. It's kind of like, what is really going to happen for the future for these prisoners? I mean, I get it. They're going to go back to their families, and most of them might be good people, but you just never know that. Knowing that what Magellan did to actually save, other people, well, not save, but also just to keep these prisoners at bay, to not have them escape. You can imagine, like, for most of them, like, maybe there is a sense of change, and maybe nothing's going to happen within Impel Down after this whole event. Like, it could come back to actually just, oh, we're all back to normal. We're actually, all in good, in good numbers of, like, what we had compared to what happened in the past. But man, you saw what the former individual that tried to take Magellan's place, the Egyptian guy, Like, man, it's just emotional. It's kind of, I feel bad for the person because he's trying his best. He's trying, like, and Luffy looked like he didn't care, like, get out of my way, kind of deal. And he's like, no, listen, you need to stop, okay? I'm trying my best to help others. Oh, like, I'm trying to not let these prisoners escape. Don't you see? Like, something like that. And it really is kind of striking and brings my thought onto that, where I'm just like, man, this is like, I get it, it's not right, but at the same time, Ace is gonna get executed, so we kind of have to save him some ways, but literally, there's no other way. Like, it's sad, it's sad, but it's in another way. Like, I guess, that's just part of the show, is in sense, and it's not realistic. If it was, it would be different and definitely crazy and definitely off this planet. But man, I just know that what Luffy's doing, it better be worth it, because that whole Impel Down thing, when it comes to rescuing like your brother, like, needs to be definitely worth it, because that was a lot of hell to go through. Anyways, that's my review. That's my thoughts about Impel Down. Let me know what you think about Impel Down, and there's gonna be more reviews and more talks surrounding One Piece, and also the different arcs that I need to catch up, because there's still a lot to go. Anyways, I'm out, and one love, One Piece. I'm out.